Hello there and welcome to our nightly news program coming to you live on All 24 News Channel here from Algiers. Next are today's top stories. The presidential and parliamentary elections in Turkey reach a decisive stage as the country enters a period of electoral silence. Also coming up, 2 martyrs shot dead by Zionist occupation forces in Nablus in the West Bank. Residential buildings and civilian sites were targeted on the 5th day of the aggression on Gaza. Also ahead, violent clashes and air raids took place in the Sudanese capital Khartoum a day after representatives of the army and rapid support signed the Jeddah Declaration. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky renews his assurances of postponing the counterattack in Bakhmut, and the pro-Russian authorities in Lugansk accuse Ukrainian forces of bombing residential buildings with British and French-made missiles. Hello again and welcome to the details. First, Turkey elections file. Turkey entered the stage of electoral silence on the eve of the presidential and parliamentary elections scheduled for Sunday, May 13th. Starting from 6 p.m., any news, comments, or articles that contain electoral propaganda or that contain anything that affects the complete freedom of voting are prohibited. Turkish voters go to the polls to vote in the 28th session of the presidential and parliamentary elections the whole day. The voters will cast their votes in order to elect a president for the country and to choose members of parliament. In the same context, the Supreme Elections Commission is working hard to receive more than 64 million electorates through ensuring the logistical and technical conditions needed hours before casting ballots that will decide who should lead the country in the next 5 years amid the division of the Turkish street and the prediction results. Islam Sid has more.
Preparations reach its final step as Turkey is standing on the curbs of its 28th session of general elections. Over 64 million Turkish voters, including more than 4 million first-time voters, will cast their votes on Sunday in more than 190,000 ballot boxes across the country from 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. local time.
I will vote for Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu tomorrow, because change is necessary these days.
Sinanolu has a different vision and values. I will vote for him.
I will vote for Erdogan. He is the best leader. He will provide the best for the Turkish future.
The Turkish Supreme Elections Authority teams are working around the clock in several areas, including 11 states affected by the earthquake, to ensure the logistical and technical conditions to receive voters who stands before a pivotal event amid the convergence of the expected results.
I came to do my duty as a citizen. I am here to cast my vote. I said one vote is one vote, and I came here by my own means.
Many cities, including the capital Ankara, witnessed the most important political race in the country's history. It is a crucial day in which candidates await the election results that will be decided by the ballot boxes.
Turks will vote on Sunday in one of the most consequential elections in modern Turkey's 100-year history. The vote will decide not only who leads Turkey, a NATO member country of 85 million, but also how it is governed. Candidates are betting on the silent voters to win the elections. The details with Zahra Farjani.
Turkey is preparing for its pivotal presidential and parliamentary elections on Sunday. Prior to the voting, an unprecedented state of political division dominates the atmosphere, which makes the presidential choice very difficult. In these presidential elections, there is a tight race between current President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and the main opposition candidate Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, the leader of the Republican People's Party. President Erdogan spoke at 3 neighborhood rallies in Istanbul city, the largest electoral area in Turkey, while his opponent Kılıçdaroğlu, the joint candidate of 6 opposition parties, held his final rally in the capital Ankara.
I chose Kılıçdaroğlu because he will improve our relations with neighboring countries. I will vote for Kemal because I think we will develop everything with him.
If Erdogan wins the elections tomorrow, this will be beneficial for all Muslim countries. But if Kılıçdaroğlu wins, neither Turkey nor any other country will benefit. Believe me, he will only deal with the United States. This man is completely American.
Some Turkish voters have not yet settled on a specific choice. Hence, the details of the latest speeches of the 3 presidential candidates make a difference, especially files such as economy, the centenary of the Turkish state, the issue of the Syrian refugees, and the country's foreign policy to some extent.
Frankly, in general, I'm not very interested in the matter, as long as the chosen president works on what benefits the country. Of course, he deserves to win.
Indeed, these mass gatherings of the Turkish economic capital, Istanbul, represent an image of the most crucial elections the country has ever known. Voters then will decide the fate of Turkey's democracy.
Turkey is hosting 3.6 million Syrian refugees. Most of them await the results of the Turkish presidential and parliamentary elections with great concern, afraid of the opposition's threats to deport them if they succeed in winning the elections. Some Syrian refugees see President Recep Tayyip Erdogan as a savior to their crisis compared to other candidates.
Turkey's elections are of interest to all Arab countries due to its size and current status as a global power. We are especially concerned as Syrians because the statements of the candidates are important to us. As Syrians and residents here, Turkey's stability matters to us, or even as neighbors. Any imbalance that occurs in Turkey affects us. The candidates' statements are not necessarily applied in reality, as they are part of an electoral campaign for the largest number of votes.
And in an interesting development, Turkey's main opposition candidate Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu has accused Russia of interfering in the country's ongoing presidential election campaign, saying that Russians are behind the deepfake and defamatory material that has been circulating for the past few days on social media.
Dear Russian friends, you are behind the montages, conspiracies, deepfake content and recordings that were exposed in this country yesterday. If you want our friendship to continue after May 15, get your hands off the Turkish state. We still side by cooperation and friendship.
For his part, Erdogan has criticized his opponent, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, for baselessly accusing Moscow of meddling in the country's political affairs. Let's take a listen.
Ne diyor Bay Kemal? Rusya'ya biz yaptırım uygularız diyor.
What does Mr. Kemal say? He says they can impose sanctions on Russia. What kind of thinking is this, Mr. Kemal? What kind of understanding is this? Russia is one of our most important allies in agricultural products today.
Biz tarım ürünlerinde Rusya bizim en önemli müttefiklerimizden bir tanesi.
And for more updates, we're joined live by All 24 News envoy to Ankara, Melissa Nur Khimilet. Hello there, Melissa. There seems to be great convergence in opinion polls between the two candidates. How is this manifested on the ground, and what are the most prominent files that the candidates focused on in their gathering to entice voters?
Yes, good evening, Karim. Actually, Ankara, like the other cities or other Turkish cities, has witnessed a lot of anxiety and anticipation during all this day. There is a state of polarization here in downtown Ankara in Kizilay Street. All the political alliances were gathered for the electoral, gatherings in preparation for the parliamentary and presidential elections that will be held tomorrow, Sunday, 14th of May. The street here, or the citizens, seem to be very divided and uncertain about who they will vote for tomorrow, and concerning the files that the candidates, but most importantly what citizens are focusing on right now, are the internal files that concern internal affairs in Turkey. They're focusing on the economic situation of the country, the future of the country, and daily life matters. Turkish people do not seem very interested in external affairs files, and that doesn't seem that it will be, or it will affect their decisions and their vote intentions tomorrow, Sunday.
Melissa Noor Khimilat, All 24 News special envoy to Ankara. You were live with us from Turkey. Thank you. And to discuss some more analysis, we're joined live via Skype by Abdenoor Toumi, Maghreb Studies researcher at Center for the Middle East Studies, Osam, Ankara, Turkey. Thank you, Dr. Abdenoor, for joining us. Can you enlighten us more on the regional and international context in which these elections come?
Good evening, sir, and good evening to your viewers. Actually, of course, as your reporter stated it from Ankara, the countdown to the elections has started, and it is one of the most exciting elections, I would say, of the century, after the 2008 American elections that led to the election of Barack Obama. Now, as far as the excitement goes of these elections on the regional level, and that will lead to the international context that leaves the position or the new geostrategic posture that Turkey has put itself in the last decade or so. So since the region, I mean MENA region, is going through, I would say, rough moments because of the turmoil and the political uncertainty and security that has been going through for decades now. So the elections of Turkey has excited not only the people, but also the elite, the political establishment, and even the decision makers in those countries that are not only the neighbors of Turkey, but also that Turkey has been dealing with them directly. So we saw this excitement within the Turkish people, but also in the region, peoples who have been waiting or looking for this day to come in and see, as again, very interesting what your reporter stated about the uncertainty of the outcome, which is very, very exciting. Because we have been following this or seeing this kind of scenarios in Western countries that, you know, they have democracy, I mean, and also parameters that we don't know the outcome of the result until the end of the polls.
And Dr. Abdenoor Toumi, why has these landmark elections drawn much attention from the Western and Arab world alike? And can we notice any Western media bias in covering these elections?
And indeed, I mean, as I stated earlier, because of the role that Turkey and the leader of Turkey, notably, it comes to the persona of the president or the outgoing president in this context, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who did change entirely his country, so that the region. So it did have a direct effect on foreign policy, on dealing with Western countries, and notably France, Germany, the UK, and the US. And now the media in those countries, in Western media, so they put, the narrative of the story, and we saw that in some headlines lately, in the Der Spiegel, in the magazine Le Point, even in the New York Times, in The Economist, and so on. Kind of a character assassination that goes or adjusts directly to President Erdogan because of his bold decisions, and that he did move his country where it is now, because in comparison, where Turkey used to be 20 years ago is not Turkey where it is now. And also the challenges that this persona, the character of President Erdogan, is indeed challenging the policies of the West, notably the US and also European countries who have been looking at Turkey, and I'm going to make kind of a game word here, Turkey as a bird, and now it's Turkey, because recently the Turks, they don't prefer Turkey to be written with Turkey with a small e. Otherwise, they don't want to see Turkey to be the star.
Understood, Dr. Abdel-Noor Toumi, you were live with us. Thank you for all these analyses. To the rest of our news bulletin, on the fourth day of the Zionist assault on the Gaza Strip and other Palestinian cities, 2 Palestinians have been martyred by the bullets of the Zionist occupation forces. The day was also marked by an Egypt-brokered ceasefire, which will lift the burden on the Palestinian citizens after intense days of war. Osama Ayati.
After 4 days of clashes and fierce fighting between the Palestinian resistance and the Zionist occupation forces, the 2 parties have agreed on a short-term ceasefire brokered by Egypt. The ceasefire also contains agreement of not targeting civilians nor their houses. However, during the same day, the Zionist occupiers broke the ceasefire agreement, and the fighting resumed in the Palestinian territory amidst strong Palestinian response to the outbreak. Earlier, the Zionist forces pounded the Palestinian territories, including Gaza Strip and the West Bank, with missile strikes, leaving several casualties, which include the 2 resistance members who were shot in Balata refugee camp in the West Bank. The Palestinian Health Ministry also stated that the casualties concerned 32-year-old Saeed Masha and 19-year-old Adnan al-Araj.
They entered this house. It's my grandfather's house, and there is my house. When they got in, it was unbelievable. They hit bombs and everything they have. I have 6 children at home. Only God knows what the situation is. Look at it. As you can see, look what they did.
On the same day, Palestinians marched in the funeral of the 2 leaders in the Palestinian resistance and Islamic Jihad commanders Iyad al-Hassani and Muhammad Abdul Al. The incident came after an exchange of cross-border strikes between the Palestinian resistance factions and the Zionist occupation forces.
The 2 young men were standing in front of me. They were unarmed, nor did they have any explosive devices like the Israeli occupation was claiming, that they have killed terrorists, as they claim. But they have killed 2 young men in cold blood, who were directly targeted, who shot them directly, while I was standing close to them.
The latest flare-up caps more than a year of resurgent Zionist violence that has killed more than 140 Palestinians in several raids on Palestinian camps in different regions of the country since January, in a seemingly never-ending cycle.
Mauritanians voted on Saturday in the first legislative and local elections since 2019, when President Mohamed Ould El Ghazouani came to power, in a litmus test for the veteran leader ahead of next year's presidential vote. El Ghazouani is widely expected to seek re-election next year, though he has not confirmed his plans. Al Insaf Party is favored to win among the 25 parties and over 3,000 candidates vying for the backing of around 1.8 million voters.
We would like these elections to bring out patriotic men who will work to boost the economy and reduce unemployment.
We want the candidates to honor their commitments to the voters, especially the women to whom they have promised development in all areas.
Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune sent his condolences to the family of the deceased former chairman of the Constitutional Council, Mr. Tayyip Al-Aiz, who passed away this morning at the age of 75. The body of the deceased was buried after the Asr prayer in Ain al-Baida cemetery in Oran, western Algeria. Moving on to other regional news and the latest development in Sudan. The report is signed by our colleague. Let's just follow the report and we come back.
Khartoum residents have described fierce battles with fighters roving the street of Sudan, a situation in the country that remains without any substantial improvement. A sound of explosion and gunfire could still be heard in Khartoum on Friday. Despite the agreement signed in the Saudi port city of Jeddah by the representatives from the two warring parties, the Sudanese armed forces and the paramilitary support forces are accusing each other of violations against civilians. According to a Khartoum-based journalist, even though an agreement on prioritizing the interest of the Sudanese people was reached, the much-needed humanitarian aid and medical supplies were still unable to reach hospitals and civilians.
Jeddah declaration have stated and committed that they will protect medical groups here in Khartoum. They are also said that they will adopt rapid and also simple procedures in order to deliver the humanitarian assistance to those who are in need here in Khartoum. But until now, the two warring parties haven't announced a mechanism to deliver these shipments to those who are in need here in Khartoum.
Sudan and
For his part, Al-Harith Idris Al-Harith Mohammed, Sudan's ambassador, said that the humanitarian situation in Sudan has worsened and that the government is using tremendous efforts to contain the impact on the situation in various aspects.
the already dire humanitarian situation has deteriorated and is getting worse. However, the government is exerting tremendous efforts to contain the impact of the situation in various aspects and was able to control and reduce the intensity of the devastation. To date, no state of emergency has been declared, nor communication network is disrupted.
According to the latest data from the United Nations, the current clashes have deprived the lives of at least 750 people and displaced tens of thousands of residents since the start of the conflict. In addition, a series of fragile ceasefires over the past weeks have failed to stop the fighting.
And that was Salma Nasib reporting on the latest in Sudan. To the Russia-Ukraine file now. Ukrainian troops are advancing in two directions along parts of the front line in the eastern city of Bakhmut, but the situation in the city center is more complicated. Sofian Katuri with more.
The situation in Bakhmut took a dramatic turn when Russian forces abruptly withdrew from their positions on the southern flank over the past 4 days, leaving behind a disorganized retreat the head of Russia's Wagner private army called a route, not a regrouping. Prigozhin, the founder of the Wagner Group military contractor, voiced harsh criticism, stating that Russian forces had lost ground in Bakhmut.
The Russian Minister of Defense and the Chief of the General Staff, by their actions, first reduced the size of the Wagner Group so that we could not hold the flanks. But after that, they decided that their brave military would stand on the flanks, but they ran away.
The Russian Defense Ministry did not comment on the latest Ukrainian advance claims in Bakhmut, but said in a statement, assault units have liberated a district in the northwestern part of the city of Artemovsk, the Russian name for Bakhmut.
Yesterday, in the Solidar tactical direction, the enemy carried out offensive operations along the entire line of contact. More than 95 kilometers long, the units of the Ukrainian Armed Forces of Ukraine launched 26 attacks, in which more than 1,000 military personnel, up to 40 tanks, as well as other military and special equipment were involved.
прикрывавший его истребитель МиГ-29 воздушных сил Украины.
The General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces announced that Ukrainian Air Force units retaliated with multiple strikes targeting areas with dense Russian weaponry and military personnel. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky underlined the need for Ukraine to translate what he called Russian psychological setback into an actual physical retreat.
What is important to understand now, in their minds, the occupiers are already ready for defeat. They have already lost this war in their minds. We must put daily pressure on them, so that their sense of defeat turns into their retreat, their mistakes, and their losses. I am grateful to each and every Ukrainian who is destroying the enemy.
The battle for Bakhmut is the bloodiest and longest since the Russian operation began on 24 February 2022. Moscow claims to be still encroaching into the city, which is already mostly under its control despite Ukraine's advanced claims.
The end of our program. Thank you for watching. Take care.